week on Sources, we take a closer look at the Guyana Teachers Union, an institution at a crossroads. Following a year marked by widespread strike action, sharp disagreements over wage negotiations, and a divided leadership, the union now enters a new chapter under the leadership of Coretta McDonald. With long-standing concerns over salaries, benefits, and representation still unresolved, and questions of transparency and internal cohesion looming large, the GTU faces a critical test: how to rebuild trust among its members while navigating complex relations with the government. As the new executive prepares to chart a path forward, we examine the challenges, the expectations, and the evolving role of the GTU in shaping the future of education in Guyana. Good evening and welcome to Sources. I'm your host, Svetlana Marshall. Tonight, we'll be taking a closer look at the Guyana Teachers Union. And to do so with me, I have the recently elected president of the Guyana Teachers Union, Member of Parliament, Coretta McDonald. Ms. McDonald, welcome to Sources.
Thank you so much for having me.
Ms. McDonald, the Guyana Teachers Union is more than 140 years old. It has been tried and tested. Do you think that the Teachers Union is as strong as it was when it first started today?
Well, let me say this. When the union first started, it started as a very little union, but it was very strong. The members there were very, very dedicated. And that union grew from strength to strength, and from meeting at a little bottom house, the women there sold the sugar cake and fudge, and they baked cake, and they did little crochet and so on, and they were able to purchase that building that we now have on Wolford Avenue. And then they did extensions, and so we have what we're having now. And over the years, the union has been very, very strong. As a matter of fact, there have been 42 presidents. I may be a little off, but I think we would have had 42 presidents serving the union. We had the likes of Basil Blair, we had Mr. Jackson, Mr. Archer, and then coming down of late we had Lancelot Baptiste AA, Bertram Hamilton, Sidney Murdoch, and of course Colwyn King, Colin Bino, and the famous Mark Light. And the union has been pretty strong. But starting 2022, might have been a little before then, 2023, 2024 is where the confidence of the members dwindled. More so in 2024, after 75 days of industrial actions. And then, quote unquote, the teachers were actually sold out by the president of the Guyana Teachers Union. The morale of the teachers dwindled. And so the strength of the union is not what we expect it to be at this time.
You mentioned 2023 when that decline happened. Persons often say that the trade union movement is not as strong as it was back in the days. Are you linking the teachers union, the strength of the union, as a result of the events that unfolded between 2023 and 2024? What are the factors that led to that decline? Without going into that August agreement.
Yes. So GTU is not an organization that stands by itself. GTU has its affiliates. The Guyana Trades Union Congress, we're affiliated to the Guyana Trades Union Congress. And you know, the GTUC has had its fair share of victimization, marginalization, and you name it, from the PPP government, where as we have the Critical Labor College, the subvention that was granted, it was stopped abruptly, just the same way our Jews, deduction of Jews was stopped. And so when the union that you're affiliated to starts cracking, then of course its affiliates start feeling the effect. And so that has been happening to GTU. But GTU still stood out there as a strong union, except for when the government started playing politics with the union. And they were able to convince some executive members on the board to go their way. That in doing that, our teachers would have seen the shakiness of their executive officers, and that brought concerns to our members. Even though they were paying their dues every single month, it still caused a decline in terms of the strength and the support we wanted from our union. And of course, the PPP started playing even deeper politics, where they started talking about the General Secretary being a member of Parliament. And I find it very hypocritical when this government is going to point finger at the General Secretary of the Guyana Teachers Union, when over the years you would have had the President of GAU sitting there as a member of Parliament when the PPP is in government and when they were out of government, and nobody had an issue with that. And that's the kind of hypocrisy that we have playing out, and it plays right into the union. Outside of that, we have teachers from all across this country who are affiliated to different political parties, and we have no difficulty with that. They are affiliated to different religious groups, and we are happy about that. But then you found that Ministry of Education officials and other government personalities, they started throwing little stones at our teachers, instilling in them that you're a part of the PPPC, and you should not be giving you should not be pledging allegiance, let me say that, to the GTU, because the GTU has a general secretary who's an opposition member, MP, and those kinds of things. And when you play on people's mind and then you start issuing threats, what happens after a while? So some of our teachers who were very bold in speaking out, they prefer to give their support from behind the scenes and not to say anything much.
Okay, let's go back to 2024 when that strike took place. More than 70 days. Teachers, hundreds of teachers from across the country, they protested, calling for better wages, calling for better teaching conditions. Now, the union was asking, it's a multi-year package, and was asking, I think, for 25%, initially thereabout. What was the ask?
So, let me say, what happened in 2024 is nothing strange all across the world. We have unions who would get involved in taking industrial actions when the conditions are not right. So what transpired in 2024, the way the PPPC government want to put it out there as if it was motivated by Coretta and it was motivated by APNO, absolute trash. Let me take you further. I'm going to stop at Sidney Murdoch, who was president in 2022, not 2002, 2003. During that time, the GTU took industrial action for 57 days under Sidney Murdoch's presidency. And the issues were the same. Conditions of work, better salaries, respect for teachers, and you name it, the conditions were there. Just the same conditions our teachers in Belize are fighting for, just the same conditions our teachers in Trinidad and in Jamaica, just the same conditions they're fighting for, just the same conditions our public servants here are fighting for, nurses and doctors and other public servants, office assistants and so on, just the same conditions they are fighting for. So in 2024, this action not only materialized in 2024, but I can refer to 2018. In 2018, under the coalition government, the General Secretary of the Guyana Teachers Union, Coretta McDonald, she was in the forefront, leading the protest because the conditions were not right. And at that time, Coretta McDonald was hailed as a champion by the PPP when they were in opposition. Barra Jagdio championed our cause. When every Thursday at his press conference, he was out there blasting the APNU government and asking why you don't support the teachers. The teachers need attention. Speak to the union. You can pay them. Cut on this, cut on that, and pay the teachers. Priya Manikchand, who is now the minister again, she was there on our Facebook page, and she was posting all the time. She was encouraging teachers on the Essequibo coast and so on to come out and join the strike in 2018. But in 2021, When we took to the streets in 2021, it was a big issue. And then in 2024, when we took to the streets again, it was a big issue. Now, we took to the streets in 2024 because in 2020, when the PPP government came into office, we submitted our proposal to them. We did not leave it there to say, okay, there's a change of government, and so the proposal is there, it will be passed on. We submitted a proposal to the Minister of Education. We met her in late August of 2020. We submitted our proposal. We submitted a second proposal. We submitted a third proposal. Nothing happened in 2020. Give and take, COVID, and all the other issues, 2021, we were back on the table. Well, not back at the table, but 2021, we were there with our proposal. 2022, the same thing. 2023, the same thing. And it got very disgusting that we were always writing to ask, what is the situation with the proposal we would have submitted? Why isn't anybody saying anything to us? And so in 2023, late 2023, we started issuing to them ultimatums that our members have met, and they have made a decision, and they are asking us to carry through with the decision.
Now, the Ministry of Education, and in fact, the Minister of Education, Priya Manichan, in a recent interview with sources, would have said that at the time the union took industrial actions in February 2024, the union and the Ministry of Education were actually engaged just days prior to that industrial action. Do you think that is fair and honest relations?
Well, let me tell you, you know Priya Manichan, full of drama. Half of it sometimes is untruth. And so if the union was meeting with the Ministry of Education, then the union would not have gone out on industrial action if we were meeting with the Ministry of Education. As a matter of fact, if we were meeting with the Ministry of Education, the Judge Kissoon, who pronounced on that matter, would not have pronounced on the matter the way he did. And it is simply because we weren't having any meetings whatsoever. We wrote to Irfan Ali, the president of this country, on more than 3 occasions, asking him to use his office to intervene for us. He never did. And so we wrote to the Minister of Labor. We wrote, as a matter of fact, we wrote to the Chief Labor Officer, attention, Honorable Minister of Labor, highlighting what our plight is, and we asked that they intervene. They never did anything.
What the union was asking for?
The union's proposal is a multi-year proposal. And so in our proposal, we don't go every year to ask. So we do a multi-year proposal. In that proposal, the first year our asking was 39.5%. Now, those of us who are engaged in negotiations, you would know that you don't ask for 5% when you go to a negotiation, go to sit at a negotiations table. You probably would have 5% in your mind, but you go higher than that because you know at the table we're always going to be coming down. You're always going to come down because your employers, they wouldn't give you what you ask for. And so our asking was 39.5%. And so we averaged that by the time we got to exactly where we wanted to get, that would have been the final offer. By the time we were there and going back and forth, and you would have heard cost for this and cost for that, and if we give you this, what would the other workers say? Because they always want to classify and talk about what would the other workers say we would have to give them to. And so by the time we were able to go around in the circles, we would have arrived at exactly where we wanted to get. Of course, the teachers were looking for nothing less than anywhere between 15 to 20%. Anywhere between that, we would have been good with it. Outside of the salaries, we talked about class sizes, because I'm sure you travel around this country, you visit schools, and you see what's happening in our schools. We spoke about class sizes. We spoke about the house lots for teachers. We have a housing project. As a matter of fact, there is a revolving project that we were supposed to have started since 2006. Since 2006, when I became General Secretary, that was on one of our agreements. That revolving project, whatever we want to call it, it just started pushing up a sprout there to get a little bit of sunlight during that 2015-2020 period, where there was an entire unit that was going to be created by the Ministry of Education under the stewardship of the then PS, Vibert Welch, because they recognized that the ministry staff, regular staff, couldn't deal with this issue of the housing project. Now, this housing project, it's designed this way, where teachers would have been receiving between $2.5 to $3 million. And then as the teachers repay, as a matter of fact, let me say, the government of Guyana would have given us $20 million. And every year they were supposed to replenish that 20 million. So you add another 20 to that, to the first 20. And as teachers repay, then you'll have more teachers added to the grouping. And so that revolving project would have been going on like that. But then we started exploring that amount that we were giving to teachers. And we decided, $2.5 million, it was supposed to start a home. 2.5 million could barely start looking at your foundation. So we increased that 2.5 to 3, and we said $5 million we were going to have it being done. And so teachers were going to get $5 million, and then as they repay, with all the conditions there, as they repay, then other teachers are going to be added. By the time we were ready to hit that off with the new unit of the Ministry of Education, the government changed. The PPP returned to office and they scrapped that. So that project never got underway. And from 2006 to 2025, you calculate the amount of years. It never got underway. So we have that one in the proposal. We spoke about teachers attending, having to go to clinics, teachers who have chronic illnesses, teachers who are pregnant, and they have to go to clinic. That provision is made there. We spoke about our meetings with the Ministry of Education and the GTO, our professional committee meetings. That is there. We spoke about branch meetings. The provision is there for branch meetings. We have teachers who are living on the coast and they've opted to teach in the hinterlands. Transportation, either air, road, or land. That provision is being made for them, for the teacher, the teacher's spouse, and 2 children under the age of 18 years old. And then we talked about other welfare matters for teachers. We spoke in that about upgrading of schools, additional allowances for professional development, additional qualifications as well. So it's a whole series of issues, not only salaries that the PPP government would want to make it out to be. We're only talking about salaries, increases in salaries. And so, having had that proposal there for 4 years, 3+ years, at our December General Council meeting in 2023, General Council took a decision after having consultations with all our members across this country, 42 branches we have, and they're all active. So our teachers in those branches said, we cannot accept this anymore, we'll have to take industrial action. So we wrote to the Chief Labor Officer, we wrote the Ministry of Education, indicating to them that we are going to pursue industrial action because they have failed to do everything that we've asked them to do, and all these years would have expired. And when we did that, rather than the Ministry of Education saying to us, well, GTU, look, let's talk. Let's start talking. We're ready to talk. We're sorry, we lapsed, but let's talk. We didn't get that from them. What we got was the bullying from them, where the Minister of Labor went on national television to threaten our teachers by telling them if they dare to go out on industrial actions, their salaries are going to be cut.
Well, we know that the court ruled subsequently that it would have been unconstitutionally legal to cut the salaries of teachers. After more than 70 days of protests and negotiation, because eventually both sides were at the negotiating table after the court would have ruled. There were other legal proceedings, especially to deal with the Jews and how they're deducted and so forth. The union arrived at a point where it was agreed and an agreement was reached between GTU and the government, agreeing to that 10% for 2024 and the 8% for 2025 and 9% for 2026. You seem to be dissatisfied, but the president of the Teachers Union at the time, Mr. Mark Light, he thought it best. Some teachers may have been tired and frustrated, and there was also the issue of learning loss. How long were you prepared to keep the teachers on the road as the General Secretary? And was it just you, or did you have the backing of the teachers?
Well, the thing is, that's the paint out there that it was Coretta McDonald. We have in excess of 14,000 teachers across this country in our public schools, and Coretta McDonald is one person. And if I were to have that kind of influence on our teachers to tell them to stay on the streets for 75 days, then by now I should have had my own political party. Eh? At least I'm guaranteed how many seats? 2.5 seats, because I might have gotten some more persons to join me. So I would have gotten 3 seats. The thing is, our teachers were quite, and they are still quite dissatisfied with the manner with which the Ministry of Education, and by extension the government, is treating them. And so teachers were prepared to stand out there for as long as possible. What happened in almost to the ending of it, when we were almost to the tape, what transpired is that rather than passing the relay baton on, Mr. Light decided to throw the relay button this side, where there was a concocted General Council meeting, and a whole lot of things were said to the teachers, those who were representing the teachers across the country. What was alarming is that this General Council meeting was summoned the morning of Friday morning. I think it was the 9th of August, the Friday morning. Mr. Light, fully well knowing that I had Parliament on that day, he knew that 6 other officers were not going to be at that meeting. Several General Council reps, after receiving that notice, said, well, I can't be there because I would have had prior arrangements and so on. So he had a couple of General Council reps there who attended the meeting. It was an online meeting, who attended that meeting. And then after throwing out a whole lot of things to them which weren't true, by saying that the officers were tired, they were receiving threats, and it's disgusting and all kind of thing. And he is thinking that the best offer is 10%. Now that 10%, according to Mr. Light, the 10%, after we left one meeting, one of the days when we left the negotiations table, he said he received a call on his way to Berbice, where he lives in the quarantine. While heading to the quarantine, he received this call, and a 10% offer was made to him. Now, any responsible person, a man who was the president of the union, if you were that responsible and an offer is made to you, this is not about you. This is about the teachers who ask you to go out there. And so rather than getting to our members, Mr. Light decided that he was going to make that decision on his own to accept that 10%. And that is what was brought to the General Council reps, without even coming to your executive officers, without even meeting with your central executive, without meeting with your central executive committee members. No decision was made. That offer was not thrown to them. But then you moved from them and you went straight to General Council with this decision, because he knew that he could maneuver those who were there. And so he threw it out there. There was no written offer of a 10%. We just heard that there was a telephone call. And I question that, because the GTU, like you rightfully said, it's over 140 years old. And for you to receive a telephone call on such an important aspect or as such an important point in the life of the union, for you to receive a telephone call and to act on that, I think that is more than treason. It outpasses betrayal, and that's treason, for you to go out there, quote unquote, to sell out 14,000 plus teachers by accepting 10%. Now, we have been meeting with our members all through the strike action. We were meeting with them. When we decided we were going to the courts, we met with them. We got the blessings of our members. And this is what happens in negotiations. Negotiations, you don't go out there and make decisions on your own. You meet with your members, you get from them. If they agree with you, then you go out there and you represent. But this decision was done based on an individual. And so that 10% went there.
But it wasn't just the 10% that teachers got. They got other concessions.
They got,
for example, duty-free concessions, yes, for the senior.
Which are all part of the proposal. But the main ingredient in that proposal was the salary increases. Because if you look at the way teachers live from paycheck to paycheck. Unlike many other public servants, teachers have house rent to pay, they got car note to pay. They got all the insurances you can think about to pay. And they also have to live. So when you go out there and you bargain and you accept 10%, you're actually saying, well, take this, whether it's a $1 more or $15 more or $20 more, $12,000 more, that's what you're giving to the teachers. When you give $12,000 to the teachers, then the prices in the market is 12 times $12,000. So, and you know, we go to the market and you buy a bora, this amount of bora for $1,000. So it wasn't actually an increase as such. You saw the figures there, but in reality, it didn't make any sense. The other thing we had there is the fact that rather than coming out to your members and say, well, you know, explain to them that, you know, we had to go this path because of A or B or C, that was not done. Again, the bullying tactics was played out. And so teachers were upset. I was upset because of the simple fact that, one, we walked out of a meeting when that 10% business was agreed upon through that phone call. Like I said, nothing was told to us before until that general council meeting. We subsequently went to a meeting with the Ministry of Education where the president recused himself from that meeting, from the whole process. The first vice president, acting as president, we went to this meeting with the ministry. That was where the official offer of 10% was made. That was rejected by the first vice president and all of us who were part of that team. It was rejected. The first vice president spoke to the media on that issue, saying that we reject the offer. So when we turned up on the 21st of August 2024, we were invited to a meeting according to Mr. Light. He was sent this invitation, and we questioned, what are we going to talk about? What's the agenda for the meeting? He couldn't give an answer, and then he said he will find out from the ministry. Now, again, as a responsible leader, head of the team, president, you got people behind you. Therefore, if an invitation is sent to you on a matter as important as that, then you ought to find out, what are we talking about today? What are we talking about? Going past that, he said they told him we were going to pick up from where we left off. And several of the members questioned, this picking up from where we left off at rejecting 10%. Are we picking up from there, or is there a new offer that is going to be made to us? What? We went with an open mind on the 21st of August 2024. Only to turn up to that meeting to recognize that there would have been a signing of an agreement. Betrayal again. Because had we gotten any wink that is what was going to be happening on that day, we would have allowed Mr. Light and Mr. Cambridge to go to that meeting. Nobody else would have turned up at that meeting.
Now, more than a year after, or close to a year after, because that agreement was signed in August 2024, after serving almost 2 decades as the General Secretary of the Guyana Teachers Union, you were elected President of GTU. What is going to be done now by you to address the issues that you feel and the teachers, according to you, feel that, you know, were left unresolved? Are you going to revisit that agreement? Is there room for that agreement to be revisited by the union? And do you really think that the Ministry of Education will give in to that?
Well, let me say, it's not about me. It's about our members. And so to do anything, it means we must have consultation with our members. And so we've been talking with our members. As a matter of fact, our members are angry with that signing off of 10%.
They're still angry?
They are still angry. Some teachers, and you would have seen that in our just concluded elections where Mr. Cambridge, he got nomination. Mr. Light got zero nomination. Some other officers got 0 nominations. And that is to say that teachers were so upset with them that teachers did not even think that they want to hear their names mentioned. And so coming out of that, the results of that election, it has shown you where our teachers are and the people who the teachers have confidence in. And so we have in every agreement that we would have inked, there is a clause there for reviewing after a period of time. And so in that clause would enable us to be able to review what was signed there. And of course, when you talk about money and more money, our teachers are ready. And it's not because they like money, but it's because money is essential for them to do whatever they have to do. So there is scope for that revision. Whether the ministry is going to agree with it or they're not going to agree with it, I wouldn't be able to say, but we are going to go there with the proposal and with some offers that in our minds are reachable.
Have you already compiled what that offer, maybe like a document to say this is what, based on the consultations, recent consultations, this is what we want teachers to have for 2025? And have they received their 8% already for 2025?
Well, our agreement is different from everybody else's agreement, where at the beginning of every year is when our teachers, they're supposed to receive their increases. That has not happened as yet. What I saw coming from the minister with responsibility for finance, he said in July, everyone will receive their 8%. And that there is a breach of our agreement. And again, this is the government that speaks to democracy and collective bargaining and meeting with the unions and want to have a good relationship, but yet you say one thing, but you practice something else. And so that 8% teachers will be receiving that in July, in their July's salary. But there are several other issues that are still outstanding.
What are those issues?
We still have the issue of the duty-free. We still have issues of class sizes. We still have issues of additional qualifications to deal with, regrading of schools. Don't talk about class sizes. Don't talk about conditions in school. There are so many issues that are there to be revisited. As a matter of fact, one of the major issues that we have right now on the table is appointment of teachers, senior appointments. Back in the days, we would during this period is when there would have been interviews for senior appointments. The GTU would have written the Chief Education Officer since February of this year, highlighting the fact that we are in this season where we need to look at our vacancy list. We need to start combing that list to ensure that we have an accurate list. We need to look at the criteria that we are going to use for promotion, whether we want to change, delete, or add anything to that listing. And then that listing would have been handed over to the Teaching Service Commission coming from the two partners where we signed off. That has not happened. The GTU wrote the CEO again, highlighting the fact that time is going, and every day we allow to pass, we are allowing a teacher, we are disenfranchising a teacher from being able to apply for promotions because teachers' ages are going. We got no responses from the CEO.
When was the last time you wrote?
The last time we wrote the CEO was Monday of this week, where after writing several letters, we recognized that we weren't getting responses from the Ministry of Education. And so we started publishing those letters on our Facebook pages, and we started sending them out to the media houses. As a matter of fact, one that was very, very popular was the issue of COVID in schools, where we had West Rumveld, Winford Gardens, Charity Secondary, Covent Gardens Primary. We had two schools on the East Coast. I think one was Golden Grove or somewhere there. But teachers were sending messages into us. And the ministry was trying to deny the fact that COVID is in the schools, that learners have been infected with COVID, and they were still having these learners there with other learners, which we found to be very stupid. And so we wrote today to the Chief Education Officer, highlighting that among other issues, promotions and regrading of schools and so on, and citing to him that this schools should be fumigated. And we should stop denying the fact that children have been infected with COVID, and there have been COVID cases in the schools. And so we published those letters. The most recent, like I said, was Monday. We received an invitation from the Ministry of Education on Friday of last week, inviting us to a meeting and asking us to list issues that are of concern to us. we listed several issues, the very issues that are in the agreement that have not yet been looked at by the Ministry of Education, and some additional issues. Unfortunately, the ministry responded to us to say the meeting has to be rescheduled again. We have not met yet for the year. And that meeting has been rescheduled again because the issues we listed there, they can't give us the kind of responses we want, which I find very, very immature, which I find to be very irresponsible, and which I find to be very deliberate. The ministry has been very deliberate in their actions now. And rather than being a ministry that is professional and being run by professional officials, we have found that many of the officials of the Ministry of Education, that they are political. And so rather than dealing with teachers' issues, they have taken a political stance. And so teachers are now suffering because of the actions of the Ministry of Education.
Okay. And so no new date has been set for...
No new date as yet.
Okay. And so if there's a delay, is there a time frame you're going to say, okay, we're going to give them a month, 2 months? How does it work?
Well, what we have done, and we're going to be making these letters public. We have already, I think that letter's already been dispatched to them because we received, the meeting was supposed to have been today. We were supposed to have been meeting today. And so I think that letter is already dispatched to the Ministry of Education, highlighting that we are disgusted and fed up at their disrespectful attitude. And this is not caring in any form for teachers. You have delayed their promotions. You have delayed them from receiving additional monies in terms of their monies for additional qualifications. We've seen a new trend now with the Ministry of Education, which is very, very concerning to us as well. That of the recent administrative appointments that are being given to any and everybody receiving administrative appointments, which is, in our minds, is preventing teachers who are eligible from applying for some schools, because they're moving a teacher from school X and giving you an appointment for school Y. A teacher from school A being given an administrative appointment, and in some cases some of these teachers aren't even eligible. I mean, while these are our teachers, we are a professional organization and we operate professionally. And so we don't do willy-nilly business. We don't do friends, favorites, and family business. There are certain conditions that are outlined, especially when it comes to administrative appointments. But many of these conditions are not followed by the ministry because they favor somebody, they gave them an administrative appointment. And so other teachers who are senior cannot now apply for those schools that the administrative appointments would have been given to. The other concern we have is that where many of our teachers are seconded from their schools to perform duties at the Department of Education. Now, when they are seconded from their schools, their position is still maintained at that school. So what you will have, persons acting around, dancing around that, because nobody could be appointed to that position since you're seconded. And we're saying, if you want these teachers at the Departments of Education, then just roll them over to public service and finish the job, so that when you roll them over into the public service sector, it creates the vacancy there that anybody else could now apply for. But teachers are holding these positions down while they are performing duties at the Departments of Education. And sometimes when we look at what is happening, we have senior teachers, we have specialist teachers who are removed from their schools and they are performing duties at the Ministry of Education. And that cannot be right.
Now, another issue that the union recently publicized in a sense via a statement is that of the Jews being deducted from the salaries of teachers and remitted to the union. I know that the matter went to court. The court did rule that those Jews should be deducted and remitted as was done in the past. I guess it's now at the level of the appeal court would have ruled as well, and I guess there's going to be a challenge to the CCJ at the level of the CCJ. But what is the impact of the government or the Ministry of Education not doing what it would have done in the past? How is that affecting the union, if it's affecting the union?
Well, let me start off first by saying, before I get to affecting the union, the deduction of the Jews is not a willy-nilly approach. Deducting the teachers' dues from their salaries is what the teachers would have legally signed onto as a deductions order. And that was sent to the departments of education, the accounts departments in every region. The teachers have signed on to say, I would like to have $700 deducted from my salary. So it's not a case where back in the years it used to happen where as soon as you join the profession, your dues were being deducted. Teachers have said, we want this $700 to be deducted from our salaries, which the government has now refused to do, simply because of the industrial action in 2024, where they felt that by doing that, they're going to be able to crush the union. That has affected the union because as a union, we offer several benefits to our teachers. We have the death benefits, we have disaster benefits, we have the scholarship awards, we have the bursary awards that we offer to our members. If there is, we do Father's Day tokens, we do Mother's Day tokens, Valentine's Day tokens to our teachers. When it's World Teachers Day, we run programs across this country where we offer tokens to our teachers as well as training programs for our teachers. And the professional arm of the union, they carry out all through the year professional development training sessions with our teachers. So that top deduction of the Jews has greatly affected our union in terms of us having being able to carry on with these programs that we usually carry through. But our teachers are dedicated. Our teachers are committed to ensuring that their union continue to stand tall. So teachers have adopted different means of paying their union dues. So some teachers pay over the counter, some teachers pay via the MMG, and some teachers they have clusters in their schools, across the schools, and so either one or two teachers are the focal point persons who would go to various schools within the cluster, receive the deductions, sign off on them, give the schools a receipt, and they bring that into the union. But that's a very slow process because our teachers in the Rupununi, our teachers in Madia, our teachers in Oriala, and some of the far-reaching areas, it's difficult for them to be able to send their dues in. And so with the limited amount of monies coming in, we can only confine that to certain aspects. Paying salaries, paying utility bills, ensuring that we pay our security, ensuring that we have some money is there to float around if persons want to go anywhere, to go around to travel to schools, and just in case if there's an emergency somewhere with a teacher that we can offer a little bit of assistance, but not the way that we usually do that. And this here is a direct attack on the union.
Help me understand in dollars what the impact is. Say, for example, what was prior to the ministry's decision not to have these deductions made, what was the estimated amount of dues paid up to the union, and what is actually being paid now?
On a monthly basis, we would have anything close to $5 million, 4-point-something million dollars. What we're having here is less than $2 million, or just about that we're having. And so you recognize our salaries alone and pensions is just about 1-point-something million dollars. And then we have to pay security, we have to pay utility bills. And so you understand what is happening there. Our security is sometimes $300,000 a month. And we have two buildings, one in Georgetown, one in Berbice. Outside of the staff, the present staff, we have those who worked with us, those who receive pensions. We have the pensioners to pay. And so this is wickedness on the part of the government to actually, when they are attacking the union, it's not the organization that you're attacking or a building that you're attacking, but you're attacking families. who forms part of that organization. So if we can't find monies to pay our staff, then several families are going to be on the breadline. If we can't find monies to pay our security, then the buildings will not be secured. If we can't find monies to pay our insurances, then you know what? Our buildings are going to be left there. And if anything happens, then that's it for our buildings. And so again, this here is a direct attack from this wicked government on the GTU. So not only affecting the organization, but affecting every single teacher who's a member, and even those who are not members of the union.
Outside of the issues that you said that are still outstanding with regards to that 2024 agreement, what are your plans as president for the union? What are some of the newer initiatives that you would want to implement during your presidency?
All right. A couple of things that we need to do very quickly. And I'm saying we because it's not about the president, it's about the team that we have
executive, the
and
council.
our teachers. This president is an individual who doesn't see herself as being the president and I make the decisions. This president is a president that is team oriented and that is open to all the suggestions and the consultations that we're going to be having with our members. So some of what we have looked at that we want to have on the front burner very quickly. One, we need to look at our buildings. We want to look at our buildings to enhance our buildings. Two, we want to be able to offer more benefits to our members. Those benefits that we're offering already, we want to increase on those benefits. We want to see our officers being more visible in the different branches, in the different counties. We have 3 regional vice presidents, Berbice, Essequibo, Demerara. We have our 2nd vice president, we have the 1st vice president, we have the general secretary, we have the deputy general secretary, we have the treasurer. And our teachers must know who their officers are. And so we want to be more visible in and around the branches of the GTU around the country. We want to be able to speak more to our teachers. We have also found the rising of teacher-pupil, teacher-student relationships. We want to be able to run more programs with our teachers, highlighting the various issues that are affecting us. We want to also be able to do some other professional courses with our teachers, because you recognize mental health is on the increase, and very often we want to deny the fact, but mental health is on the increase. Our teachers are not spared from that, and so we want to have professionals who can come in and talk to our teachers, counsel our teachers and those kinds of things. We also want to be able to build alliances with business entities in our country and outside of. We want to be able to strengthen our relationship with our affiliates outside of Guyana, the Caribbean Union of Teachers, the Canadian Teachers Federation, Education International. Within the Caribbean Union of Teachers, we have all of the Caribbean islands there. So we want to be able to run exchange programs with our counterparts in Jamaica, in Trinidad, in Barbados, so that we can have these exchange programs where our teachers would be able to go off for a week or 3 days and go out there and seek out best practices. The same thing we would want to have our counterparts there come here and we seek out best practices so that we can be able to push those forward. We would also want to be able to build a stronger alliance with the private sector committee, because every day our teachers go out there and they shop here and they shop there and they shop everywhere. And if we can have that kind of alliance with the private sector committee, then we should be able to arrive at where our teachers can be given discount cards so that when they go to shop at Bounty or somewhere else, they can have these discounts. We want to be able to talk more about, look at building homes so that we can encourage persons to come in and offer do consultations with our teachers, give guidance to those teachers who are going to be building homes, what they should use, what they shouldn't, the best kind of materials they should use, and how the kinds of discounts that we can get from that. We would also want to be able to develop a better relationship with the security sector as well as the health sector, because many times our learners are injured, they fall ill at school, our teachers fall ill at school, and then you know the long story. They have to wait for a long time when they go to the hospital. So we want to be able to build those alliances so that if a teacher turns up with a child, then, that teacher is given automatic attention with that child. If a teacher falls ill at school, when the teacher turns up there, you should be able to go to somebody with a card to say, and you know that as a teacher, so you give, it's not that we want to say that teachers are extra special, but teachers are special. And so when our teachers go out there, teachers must feel wanted. They must feel as if people value them. And so outside of all of that, we're working towards rebuilding the confidence of our members, regaining that kind of trust that they used to have in the union, being able to rebuild their commitment and dedication to the union so that we can build together, we can work together, we can have the kind of representation that is so needed so that if something happens with a teacher, then the teacher is offered the kind of representation that he or she needs. And so those are some of the broad areas that we want to look at as a body going forward for the next 3 years.
Ms. McDonald, in addition to being the president of GTU, you're a politician, a member of parliament. I know the parliament would have since dissolved. But your name is going to be featured on the Partnership for National Unity list of candidates. Do you believe that you will be, as a member of parliament, you're in a better position to put forward the issues confronting teachers? Or do you see it, as some may have seen it, where that position, a trade unionist position, conflicts with that of a politician when you head to that negotiation table?
Well, let me say to you, for those who don't know, coming out of the trade union, our national politics would have evolved. So trade unions have birthed the national politics. So if a trade unionist is around the table as a member of parliament, that should never be an issue for us. But I recognize that it's an issue where Coretta McDonald is concerned. Again, let me say, I have seen my counterpart, the late Kamal Chan, president of GAU, being a member of parliament, and there was never an issue with him. His members took industrial actions on several occasions against both administrations, and you've never seen the kind of vindictiveness being meted out to them as was meted out to the GTU. And so at present, I have my counterpart, Sipal Narayan, who is a member of parliament, president of GAU, present president of GAU, and he's sitting in the government benches as a government MP. And he is heading his union. They have taken industrial actions under his leadership as well. But I've never seen that kind of venom being spewed at them. And so it is saying that some unions are being directly attacked because they are not part and parcel of the government. Coretta McDonald sitting around the table as an MP, as a trade unionist, as a candidate on a list. For me, it gives a better voice to be able to preach the sermon that you want to be heard. And so when you go out there and preach that sermon, it should not be seen as you attacking, but it should be seen as you highlighting what is not being done. But we got some very thin-skinned people, and they take everything as an attack on them, rather than reading the message, they attack the messenger. And it happens very often, and I can tell you, I have grown accustomed to it. And so it doesn't really bother me now. It doesn't really bother me. At first, I used to be ticked off a little bit, but it doesn't bother me now because I understand what I have to do, and I will continue to do what I have to do. I have been elected. I was elected then, and I've been elected now, not in the same position, but in a new position, and I will continue to speak for the teachers. As a matter of fact, or let me inform and remind that Coretta McDonald is a teacher first. I'm a teacher by profession. I'm a trained graduate head teacher. So when I go out there and I stand on the streets and I have a placard holding in front of me, I'm not holding it there for those teachers alone, I'm holding it there for myself. So whatever the teachers get, I will get. And so when I stand there, I stand for myself first, and then everybody else. I don't stand there to go and sign off on anything that my colleagues don't want me to sign off for. So I'm saying that so that persons would understand why I have the passion for doing what I do. And let me tell you a little story. I became a trade unionist because, and a very rebellious one too, simply because when I started teaching as a young teacher, I was bullied. Education officers tried to bully me. Head teachers tried to bully me. But what took me along is because I took time off to read the laws of Guyana. So I knew what my rights were and I knew what my responsibilities were. Or I know what are my rights and I know what my responsibilities are. And I understand that rights and responsibility, they go hand in hand. And so when persons came around trying to bully me, I had to ask them, and very often I would still ask, and I would tell our teachers too to ask, show me the document that you're speaking from. Could you quote which document you're speaking from? Madam, this is what the law says. I don't understand what you were telling me. And because of me being bullied when I was a younger teacher, it caused me to become a trade unionist. And I understand what happens with other teachers when they call to make complaints about how they are treated in school, how education officers are speaking to them, and those kinds of things. That there gives me the passion to do what I do because I have been a victim of it. And so I know what teachers go through.
Now, should the APNU, I was going to say AFC, but should the APNU win the September 1 elections, and you are appointed minister, this is just me saying if, right? Would you then resign as president, should that occur?
Well, the Constitution of the Guyana Teachers Union is clear. It speaks to those who were former teachers. And so when that happens, I will not be considered a teacher anymore because I will not be in the system as a teacher. And so it's obvious that I will have to resign. If you remember a couple of months ago, when Mark Lighton and Julian Cambridge, they took me to court.
The court ruled that
that I'm a practicing, I am a teacher. The Constitution is clear on membership, open membership. It is clear on associate membership. It is clear on war membership. There are 6 categories of membership that the union offers. And so when that happens, I will be now classed into the group of associate membership. So I'll still remain a member of the Guyana Teachers Union. I'll still continue to pay my dues to the Guyana Teachers Union. I'll still have a say in terms of offering suggestions, not making decisions, offering suggestions, and like every other teacher can offer. And I will ensure that the GTU the flag continue to fly high and maybe higher. But in that sense, I will no longer be president, but I'll be an associate member.
Ms. McDonald, closing remarks.
Well, at this time, we're off on our August vacation. And so I want to use this opportunity to thank our teachers who have remained committed throughout. Our teachers, they go through everything that you can think about. And they have become every profession that you can think about. Doctors, lawyers, police, judge, jury, everything, medic, nurse, everything that you can think about. How our teachers have become without the training. And with all of the rain that's coming through the roof, with the grass taller sometimes than they are, with the snakes in the classrooms, with the abuse from education officers, abuse from parents, abuse from students and learners and so on, our teachers have continued to stand tall and to work towards their objective, which is to ensuring that their learners are able to grasp the concepts that they teach. And so I want to thank our teachers from the bottom of our hearts for continuing to be there, continuing to hold up the principles of education, continuing to be those molders in the nation. And I want to ask you to use some of this period to relax and be rejuvenated so that come September 8th, you're going to be ready to work, ready to return to the plantation to grind, as we would say. And so I want to thank you, teachers, and let's continue to work towards making GTU a better union.
Ms. McDonald, thank you for your service as a teacher to this nation, nurturing the nation's children. And I wish you well in your future endeavors. Thank you for joining me on this edition of Sources. And to our viewers, thank you for watching. With that, we've come to the end of this edition of Sources. I've been your host, Svetlana Marshall.